But Brandon, let's close everything out on the podcast today, going back to the hard court, or the hardwood is what I should say, the basketball court. We're going back to college basketball, and we're going to talk about what you were telling me before we hit the record button, and I asked you, are you being sarcastic or not? But no, you're being serious. Your favorite team from last year to watch in the tournament, the Nevada Wolfpack, who last year, if you do not remember, Nevada finished... They were a 7th seed. They played Loyola from right here in Chicago. They lost to Loyola on that magical, Sister June? Sister Jean? Yeah, Sister Jean. On that magical run by Loyola. Well, this year, they're even better, Brandon. They've only lost one game all year, which was to New Mexico, and it was a shellacking by New Mexico, 85-68. You would think a team that's only got one loss would have lost a close game to New Mexico. They've beaten USC. They've beaten Arizona State. They have beaten Loyola, who they played last year in the tournament. They have basically beat almost everyone that they played, and the rest of their schedule is not that tough. Let's be honest, Wyoming only put up 49 points against them, and they won 82-49. I will ask you this question when it comes to Nevada. Are they this year's dark horse to make the Final Four? Because they almost did. They had a good chance last year if it wasn't for Sister Jean and those Loyola Ramblers.
Gosh darn it, Sister Jean. I'll tell you what. No, I was really excited to watch Nevada last year, especially their first game against Texas. Mm-hmm. One of those games where you're like, they're not going to win. They probably shouldn't win. They're winning. They won.
And how many people picked them?
And then how about the next game? How about the next game against Cincinnati?
The number 2 seeded Bearcats.
They are not going to win this game. They're down by a lot. Okay, turn that one off. Go to the next game. 10 minutes later. Holy crap.
Yeah.
They're down by 2. We're sticking to this game. They win that game. Cincinnati is upset. My bracket just went to crap.
Yeah, they were down 44-32 at half.
It was such a great team to watch. And even in the game against Loyola, which Loyola, especially when you're in Chicago, you should be rooting for Loyola Chicago right now. I wasn't. I didn't care. I mean, it was a great story, but I wanted Nevada.
I was rooting for it.
Everyone's around me like, go Loyola. And I silently to myself, shut up. Nevada to win. But anyways, it was unfortunate that those two teams had to play each other because those were two teams that had these kind of miracle dream Cinderella seasons and Cinderella seasons in the postseason in the national tournament. I wish they could have played somebody else instead of playing each other, but it ended up being a great game, and it was a great run for both of them. And truly, I was very happy to see Loyola do as well as they did. But Nevada is definitely, Ricky, I think, a candidate for a dark horse this year for the Final Four. The Martin brothers are back. First of all, that's all I got to say. Cody and Caleb, they're back again. They are fun to watch. One of those guys, if not both, can take over a game at any moment. They've done it all season long. They did it in the postseason last year. This is a team that's got the potential, that has the coaching and the mentality to be able to make it to the Final Four. That's what I think, number one, is big. They have the talent, the coaching, the strategy, the mentality to do it, the calmness in those games. If they're able to carry that into the postseason in the tournament this year, there's a really good chance that they are able to make it at Elite Eight, Final Four, possibly beyond that, unless, of course, there's a team like they were last year that comes up and bites them.
So here's the thing I'm looking at, and seeding is going to be very, very important, which first off, the thing I will throw out is you want to know what set the table for Nevada and Loyola last year? Guess what region they were in? Not the Virginia region, the UMBC region, baby. The 1 seed was knocked out right away. The final, the last 4 teams in that region, basically the Sweet 16, number 9, Kansas State. Number 5, Kentucky. Number 11, Loyola. Number 7, Nevada. All top 4 seeds. Virginia lost in the first round. Arizona lost in the first round to Buffalo. You had Tennessee lose in the second round to that Loyola team, and you had Cincinnati lose in the second round to that Nevada team. And the thing that I look at now is I wonder if by being better this year, if that is going to hurt them this year in the tournament. Because last year they were a 7th seed, Brandon. And if I look up, I'm going to pull it up here to see the exact percentages if they have it here. No, they don't have those percentages. But basically, a 7-9, basically the 7-9s and the 7 and, what would that be? I'm screwing it up here. 7-10s. The 7-10s and the 8-9 games are almost like coin flips, especially that 8-9 game.
They are. 8-9 for sure.
So you're going from a coin flip game, which some may say, yes, that odds is lower than this, but let's look at this. And especially off the year we're coming from. 4-13. There have been 28 13 seeds to beat 4 seeds in NCAA tournament history. Almost 21% of the time, the 13th seed beats the number 4 seed. Last year, not only did Marshall beat Wichita State, Buffalo beat Arizona last year. And if you look at it, the last 5 to do it. So we had 2 last year. Hawaii did it to Cal. That was the, I want to say that was the Jaylen Brown, Ivan Rabb Cal team. Lost to Hawaii in 2016. 2013, LaSalle beat Kansas State. 2012, Ohio beat Michigan. You and I were on a bus coming home from Kentucky because we just got done calling a NAIA women's basketball game. I remember that game vividly, watching it on the bus because John Gross was the head coach of that Bobcat team that beat Michigan. And then in 2011, I think it was Kenneth Fareed, don't quote me on that one, his Morehead State Eagles beat Louisville in 2011. I know what you're saying. Well, Ricky, that was, 8 years ago? What does that have to do with anything? The point is, my first point is, just because Nevada is going to be a 4 seed, and I throw the 4 seed out because in Joe Lunardi's bracketology, they are on the 4 line, and I don't really know if they're going to be able to climb to the 3 line because of how weak their conference is. Like, they're not coming from the toughest of conference. Like I just said, they just beat Wyoming 89-49 or something like that. Whereas they're not going to jump to the 3 lines right now are Houston, Kansas, Purdue, and Marquette. Maybe Houston. Maybe you can jump Houston, but I'm not even confident with that. I don't see them jumping a Purdue. I don't see them jumping a Kansas. I don't see them jumping a Marquette. So for me, when it comes to Final Four dark horses, I kind of look at it and go, yes, they should have an easier road because they play like more double-digit teams. Like if they beat the 13, then they'll play either the 5 or the 12. Then they'll play probably the 1 seed unless we get a like miraculous UMBC team this year. I wonder if by being the 4 seed, though, their road would be harder than it was last year, virtually making their road to the Final Four harder, if I'm going to be redundant. It'd just be a harder road in general.
Well, because I also think that when you're the top-seeded teams, you are supposed to be the better one. Excuse me, the better team in the game. There's not as much, I think there's maybe more, there's more pressure riding on you to win this game and get it done. Whereas opposed to some of these teams that are coming in that are a 13, that are a 12, that are certainly 14 or beyond, there's not as much pressure. Some of these teams, they're just really stoked that they got in the tournament. There's these teams, they're playing loose. They're not playing with a lot of pressure behind them. They're going out there, they're having fun, And I think a lot of times that makes it easier for them when they start to get up on another team. If they do, the top-seeded teams, sometimes are like, what do we do? This has not happened all season long. Sometimes that's their first look or taste of adversity in the season. But I do think it's about seeding. It's about the region that you're in, the other teams that are in with you. It's about all those factors because right now, Joe Lunardi in his bracketology, he has Nevada as the 4, then Indiana or Oklahoma as the 13. Then if Nevada won that game, they'd be playing right now either Louisville the 5, Minnesota the 12.
Good luck against Louisville. They almost beat Duke.
That's what I was going, but then they found a way to shockingly lose it.
And then you could play Virginia, who's your 1 seed.
So you're not looking at an easy road. You're not looking at an easy road there.
And look who the 2 seed is in that region.
I know, Kentucky. So it's not easy at all. But I think that, what were they last year? Do you remember what they
7.
were? They were a 7. So you're at a point where 7, you're solid, but you weren't the greatest. And they had a road that just they beat the 10, they beat the 2 and then got to play the 11. But they also had magic, and that's a spark. That's what you need when it gets to this tournament. Because it's not always about the team that's more talented. It's about the team that plays the best that day, that has everything go well for them. That's the best, most exciting thing. And for other head coaches, losing teams' head coaches, the most frustrating thing, because if you come and you've been shooting lights out, let's just say, I'm talking crazy here, but Duke comes out and they're all cold day 1. If the other team is not cold, Duke could lose. Game 1, the best team, the team that almost everyone's going to have winning their tournament, because 1, it's Duke, and 2, they're the best team in the country, hands down. But if they come out and they shoot poorly, it's all over. And every stat, every strategy, anything that somebody thought of, it's gone. It's out the window. And I love it. I hate it, but I love it because it's so exciting. And it makes for a fun tournament. Everyone's watching it.
Let me put it this way, though, too, is so I'm looking at the last 3 years where all the number 4 teams won in their first round. I'm going to go through those really quick. 2017, 15, and 2014. In 2017, here were the 4 seeds. I'm going to tell you their first round and then how far they got. The first one, Florida. They beat East Tennessee State in their first game. Florida was a really good team that year. They went all the way to the Elite 8 before losing to South Carolina. That Thornwell, that Gamecock team that went all the way to the Final Four. Then West Virginia. They beat Bucknell in the first round, only by 6, but they got through it. They went all the way to the Sweet 16 before just barely losing to the Gonzaga Bulldogs in the Sweet 16. Purdue Boilermakers. They beat the Catamounts from Virginia 80-70. They went to the Sweet 16 before losing to Kansas. And then the last one in 2017, Butler, they had that 12-point win over Winthrop in the first round. They went to the Sweet 16 before losing to the number 1 seeded team, the North Carolina Tar Heels. Then in 2015, you've got Maryland. They beat Valpo. It was a close game, 3-point game. They had to stave them off. They still got the win. They were bounced the next game by the 5 seed. Then you have North Carolina. They beat Harvard. That was an overtime game. They beat them by 2, so it was close. But North Carolina went to the Sweet 16 before losing to the number 1 seeded team. And then you've got Louisville. They beat Cal of Irvine. They went to the Elite 8 before losing to Michigan. And then that 2015 year, Georgetown, one and done, beat Eastern Washington, lost to Utah in the next round. And then 2014, because Brandon, I know I'm boring you at this point, Michigan State, they beat Delaware in the first game, 93-78. They went all the way to the Elite 8 before losing to UConn in the Elite Eight game. San Diego State, they went to the Sweet 16 after beating New Mexico State in a thrilling first-round game. Lost to the number 1 seeded team. You're catching a trend here. Usually this team runs into the number 1 seeded team and loses and gets spanked and goes down. Then you have Louisville. They beat Manhattan. Where did they go, Brandon? The Sweet 16. However, they lost to the 8-seeded team because that was the year Wichita was the number 1 seeded, and people were upset that Kentucky was an 8 seed. They thought they should have been ranked a little bit higher. Yeah, that Louisville team lost to Kentucky because Kentucky got a favorable seeding in that bracket. And that's the whole thing, kind of going to your point too, that last one. What if there's a team like that Kentucky team where it's like, whoa, wait a second. That's an 8 seed? That's not an 8 seed. That's a 2 seed. Why are they an 8 seed? Or like, whoa, that's not an 8 seed. That's a 3 seed. Why are they an 8 seed? And oh, wait, it doesn't matter. You still got to play them because you won the games. Like, that to me is kind of the ebb and flow of this. Of like, yes, someone's going to say, well, of course, that's what the tournament is. Like, you play, it's like golf. Play it as it lies. You play it as it lies. However, maybe being a 4 seed may come back to bite the Nevada Wolfpack this year, which I will say definitively, I think it will. I don't think this Nevada team goes to the Final Four. I think we're seeing a trend. If they can get out of, and this depends on who they're playing to, but I'm looking in the crystal ball. I'm seeing the history, Brandon. What am I seeing? You get out of the first round, you usually win the second round, you lose to the number 1 seed. Like, that's what I'm seeing. And based on the number 1 seeds that we looked at, just answer the question. Can they beat Duke? Can they beat Virginia? Can they beat Kentucky? Can they beat Gonzaga? Maybe. That might be the 1 seed that they can beat. Can they beat Tennessee? Can they beat Michigan? That's the question you have to answer. All those teams we considered for a one seed, can they beat one of those teams? If they can, put them as a dark horse for the Final Four. If not, they ain't going there.
Is it stupid of me to say that the answer to every single one of your questions you just said is yes?
That they could?
Yeah. And the reason the reason I say it though is because reason I say it, tournament time, did we think that Cincinnati was going to lose? No. Did we think that Virginia, a number 1 seed, was going to lose to a 16? Mm-hmm. Not a chance. There you go. That's all the proof and evidence that I need to be able to show to say, Ricky, I'm happy with what you just stated and what you just went through to show. Do you see the pattern here? Well, guess what? The pattern for every year that the NCAA tournament has been around for college basketball, not a single 1 seed had fallen. Mm-hmm. Many people just started to come to the belief that it was never going to happen. Consistently, always winning were the 1 seeds. Sometimes it was close, but they always won. This past year, Virginia just didn't have it.
Well,
they lost.
No. I'm also going to throw out this. And Virginia, although I will say before I make this point, UMBC did come to play. But one of the big things heading into that game, heading into that tournament, did everyone think it was going to happen in the first game? No. But Virginia had a big injury coming into that. I want to say it was DeAndre Hunter was who was injured, to where it was a point where I had Virginia as my champion. And I listened to the night of ESPN kind of doing their breakdown, and I'm listening to it. And Jay Billis, he was speaking to the nation, but I felt like he was looking right at me and like speaking just at me. And he said, Ricky, he did say this. He said, Ricky, this injury takes them out of the national championship. Do not have them in your national championship. And I changed them.
Ricky
I only had
ran
them go
for his computer
to the Sweet 16.
and made the change.
I didn't have to run for it. It was right in front of me. But I made the change. I said, you know what? You're right. This injury is going to affect them. It did. It affected their whole team. It changed how they played. And UMBC, you got to say, they did take advantage. There was that. But also, you got to look at the other side of it. Like, the other 2 1 seeds, for every Virginia, there's a Villanova. Did we expect Villanova to lose last year before the Final Four? No, and they didn't. They ran through their side. Kansas, the same thing, went right through it. Even if I'm just going to go back to 2017 because I could go further. Villanova, they were a 1 seed, got bounced out in the second round to a Wisconsin team. Gonzaga, though, they went all the way. They went all the way to the Final Four. Kansas, Elite Eight before that Oregon team shocked them. North Carolina, all the way to the Final Four. And that's another thing, too, and that's why I love the tournament and why there's no definitive answer. Like, I could sit here and go, yes, I don't think that Nevada's going to be a Final Four team this year. But I don't have the answers. Zion, I'm going to say this and hope it doesn't. Zion Williamson could go down. R.J. Barrett could go down. Cam Reddish could go down.
They'd be fine without Cam.
Changes Duke. They would be fine, but it would change their dynamic completely, especially Zion. Would change their dynamic. You look at Tennessee. Grant Williams goes down. Changes the dynamic of that team overall. Like, any of these players on these teams could go down. There's also, like you have mentioned, which is a great point, one cold day of shooting, your season's over. You're done. Like in the NBA, and this is the thing that kind of like I like college compared to the NBA, is in the NBA, oh, we came out, we had a bad game. It's okay, game 2's tomorrow. Or it's okay, game 2 is in 2 days. Whereas in the NCAA tournament, shit, we lost, my season's over. I'm no longer, like, I'm a one and done, I'm going to the NBA now, or I'm a senior, my eligibility is now over. And that's the great thing about it. Do I see Nevada being a Final Four dark horse? No, because I think that the 1 seeds this year are going to be tough to get through. And this could be a year where we see 3, if not all 4 1 seeds get to the Final Four.
Won't happen. Never happens the way that we predict it. Mm-hmm. Never. Never does. Duke will lose in round 2. Virginia will lose in the first game again. Back-to-back years of being knocked out by the 16. I mean, most likely that won't happen, but there's going to be crazy stuff that happens. It always does. That throws a monkey wrench into things, and everyone looks at their bracket and goes, well, you can peel that off the wall because I'm wrong again.
And I mean, that's the beauty of it, though.
But that's also the excitement and the energy of college basketball and March Madness in this tournament, is because anything could happen any given day. It is so exciting. It's so fun. It has so many people amped up, players, coaches, fans. It is one hell of a tournament that gets so much attention. But again, we cannot predict anything. We can say all of our stats. We can give all the history. We can give all the insight. People can talk on ESPN. We can talk with the quote-unquote experts. But at the end of it all, we do not know what's going to happen.
Well, and
we do not know, and that is the best thing because, again, I mentioned it, you mentioned it, and I'll mention it again. If a team like Nevada, let's say, because you're not convinced that they could be a dark horse for the Final Four, and I'm taking them because the segment's supposed to be about Nevada, but it became all college basketball, and that's fine. But they're playing Louisville. Let's say round 2. Both got past round 1. Congrats. Round 2. Louisville comes out and they play the way that Duke basically played against them for most of the game. Nevada plays like Louisville did. But that Louisville isn't able to come back from it. That's all you need. That's all you need is one day of playing your best basketball and hope that you can go and play it again the next day. Or all you need is one day of playing mediocre basketball, but making the right changes, the right adjustments at halftime, and you end up winning the game. The tournament's all about an adjustment. It's all about adjustments. It's all about what head coaches have in their creative box, because there's a lot of times they need to come out and they need to quickly change how they're playing, quickly change their setup, their defense, their offensive sets. And they need to do that very quickly. This is calling into account what head coaches are really good, really on top of it, very creative, very experienced, and which ones they're not able to do it. And then how effective are those players then being able to make those changes? That's where adjustments certainly come into play.
So this year will be Nevada's third tournament appearance in the current head coach's kind of reign. The first one was in 2017. They were a 12 seed. They lost in the first round. Last year was their second, so back-to-back. It'll be their third plus their third in a row. Last year, we've already said it. They won game one, won game two, and then lost game three. Here's the thing, kind of bringing it back to Nevada, that I think will be interesting is, number one, they've gotten better each year. Yes, it was a little bit of a jump last year, and they were honestly very close to being a repeat of their 2017. Like, the ball bounces another way. I know ball don't lie, but the ball bounces another way. Texas wins the game. We're not having this conversation right now. It's a very different conversation because they were not a Sweet 16 team last year then. But the thing that I look at is the adjustment of, like, okay, coach came in, maybe that Iowa State game in 2017, all right, this is the first tournament game that I'm coaching, wasn't ready for. And I don't know if that's the case, I'm just throwing it out. Then the next year, okay, I got my boys ready. The next day, like even having that day in between, we made the adjustments we needed to. Having that week off, maybe that's what got us to where the other team's game plan got us. I wonder if this year it's going to be, okay, we're going to be ready for that this time. We were ready for the first part last year. Now we're going to be ready for the second week this year, where that week that you have between the first and second round and the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, we're going to be ready for that. And if they're ready for that and can get it done, because that's another unique thing about the tournament. Game 1 to game 2, you get one game to game plan. Game 2 to game 3, I get an entire week to game plan for you. Then it's game 3, game 4, I get one day. Game 4, game 5, I get an entire week. And then the national championship, I believe, is an entire week as well. But that also at Nevada will be important, is if they get to the second weekend this year, will they be, I don't want to say they weren't ready last year, but will they be more prepared this year because of what happened last year against Loyola?
You like to always think that you're going to learn from what you did in the past, and Eric Musselman has shown that he's I think a very good head coach, a very good college basketball coach, and the right guy leading this Nevada Wolfpack team. I'm excited for what they can do this postseason. I'm excited for how far they can possibly go, because like I said, last year they became the team that I was really excited to watch and enjoyed watching. Whenever Nevada was playing, I'm like, okay, stick me in front of the TV at that time, because that's the game I'm watching. It was that much fun. They were exciting, electric, and I hope for the same this year.
So I'm going to ask you this, because we can't say, all right, Brandon, Final Four, because we don't know who they're going to play.
No.
But let's use Joe Lunardi as the example.
Okay.
So just to read off what he's got for our audio listeners. 1 seed, Virginia, playing a 16 seed of Norfolk State or St. Francis. 8-9 would be Baylor-Auburn. 5-12 is Louisville, Minnesota. 4-13 is Nevada versus either Indiana or Oklahoma. 6-11 is Maryland-Linscomb. 3-14 is Kansas, South Dakota State. Cincinnati is 7. Wofford is 10. And then 2-15 is Kentucky and Texas State. Using those, what Joe Lunardi has, how far would Nevada get? Would they be that team that reaches the Final Four? Or if not, where would they get to?
Sweet 16.
And I'm assuming losing to Virginia.
Yeah. Sweet 16 lose to Virginia. That's what I think will happen. But now people might say, well, Brandon, you said that they could be a dark horse for the Final Four. Yeah, they could be. They could also lose first round. I can't say with certainty. I can tell you what I think will happen. I can also have my hope, my belief of what could happen, and that's where I fall with saying that they could be a dark horse for them.
I got either one or two outcomes, and it depends on that second game. You either lose in the second game to Louisville, or you lose in the Elite Eight to Kentucky. Like, that's how it goes in my mind. Because if this bracket was laid out, I mean, maybe Minnesota. Like, Minnesota to me has no room to even be in the same ball court as Louisville because you lost to Illinois. Like, you've got that stamp on you. So, like, wear it with pride because you lost. I know we're winning and
like
we've got a 4-game win streak, but you lost to us when we you lost to us when we were bad, not when we were on this win streak. Which right now Minnesota should be, hey, you beat Michigan State. I know we're playing better now, but we beat you when we were bad. So you've got that. Then Virginia, I feel confident with them getting to the Sweet 16, but I think Nevada coming off a win against Louisville, that I know that when we talk to coaches, they don't like to believe, some coaches don't like to believe in the momentum thing. I think that it adds a boost of confidence when you beat a tougher team. That might carry them in Virginia. I don't see Nevada beating Kentucky, though. Kentucky, we talked about them earlier. If they play like they did against Tennessee, chalk them to the Final Four because they're going to be a team. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Kentucky Duke in the final. Could you imagine that? First game of the year they play each other. Last game of the year they play each other. Let's see how they've done the rest of the year. Any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
I wish it was March. That's my final thought. I wish it was.
We're halfway there.
I wish it was March right now, and I wish it was about March 15th, because that would be the Friday before everything kicks off.
The Big Ten tournament.
Because then the next day is all the St. Patrick's Day, everything, and then boom, that week we're off to the races.
Well, this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you think down below in that comment section. Nevada, are they a dark horse for the Final Four? What's your percentage also? I know the percentages don't matter, but what's your percentage that they'll make the Final Four? And how'd you come up with that? Did you throw a dart at a board? Did you ask your dog and your dog told you? Let us know what you think.
That's what
also,
Ricky does.
Make sure to check us out on Patreon, patreon.com/mostvaluedpodcast. We cannot do what we do each and every week without the support of our patrons. Also, go and rate and review the Primetime Podcast on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. Want to thank you guys for watching on YouTube. Want to thank you guys for listening on podcast services around the world. And as always, have a good day, everybody.